Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Box with your host and CEO of BabbleBox, Sherry Langberg. Sherry interviews the world's biggest brands, agencies, and influencers to uncover their influencer marketing secrets to success. Go behind the scenes and learn how you can make influencer marketing part of your social media playbook. Subscribe to Beyond the Box at podcast.babblebox.com. Listen to all of your favorite episodes and follow us on Instagram for more influencer marketing inspiration.
Take it from me, running a digital marketing agency is not easy. Today, we're going to hear all about what it takes from Tom Cunha, CEO of Brigade Marketing, a super creative and highly energetic firm which specializes in the entertainment industry. It's great to have you on the show today, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Sherry.
Thank you. You're the first agency I think that we've interviewed. So CEO of Brigade Marketing, your company focuses on the entertainment industry. What led you to launch your own agency?
It was a number of things, actually. I'd worked in the entertainment industry for quite some time. I was primarily in the digital marketing and publicity space. And at the time, which was 2010, 10 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, I just felt like there was really an opportunity for an agency that had kind of a forward-thinking approach that combined the different disciplines of digital marketing, which includes social media, which at the time was very small, and publicity, creative advertising, and then we also do media planning and strategy as well. So I wanted kind of sort of a 360 experience. And a lot of agencies had one or the other, but I wanted to have sort of that holistic approach to it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I know for me, it's like with what you're doing, it's brilliant because a lot of times it's like, where does influencer marketing fall? Is it on the PR side or is it on the digital side, like the planning and the media buying side? So it's interesting that you kind of have it under one umbrella.
Yes. And it is varied in terms of where it falls, depending upon the entity. And that I think that is the case on both client and agency side.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does fall under media. We primarily have it under publicity. We do it more on a micro level. So it's dealing more with, organic outreach to influencers.
Okay. So not paid.
Correct. I mean, we have done paid. We have that capability and we certainly do it, but it's more non-paid than paid.
Got it. Now, this next question that I selfishly just have to ask this question for, anyone who's a CEO out there running their own agency, but just for my, any learnings that I can gain, what advice would you give to a CEO running their own ad agency?
I think the most important thing is to pay attention, to look ahead, and to be adaptive. I know that's multiple things, but, in the digital space, it is ever evolving. Kind of like what I was telling you. And in 2010, it was sort of very young inception of marketing films and TV properties on social media. Now it is very much a driver. So it's really kind of paying attention to what's working in the marketplace, the behaviors of people, how they're consuming, what they're doing, and sort of paying attention to how it shifts.
Interesting. So I know why you got into this segment, this niche segment, but is there anything unique and specific that you're doing in terms of the services that you offer to the entertainment industry, to your clients?
I would say the one thing that I think is pretty unique about us is that, we do have sort of a 360 approach. So I have a social media team, I have a PR team, I have a creative services team. So when we approach a campaign, we really do look at it 360, even when the client might be coming to us in an a la carte capacity. So for the PR team, for example, has very good insight into what's happening in the social media space. And that's important because social media is driving so much of publicity now. And that really, I would say, is one thing that I think distinguishes us. We have a great team. It's a lot of the same folks that have been with me, for years, some even since the beginning. And, we're I think, boutique enough company that we have the interactions and the insight of the various teams. It's not, segmented in ways that might happen at, say, a larger boilerplate agency.
Yeah, I see that a lot. It's like kind of siloed. So someone's running a campaign and doing the social strategy, but then influencers are doing something completely different.
Yeah, and they're so tied into each other, and the ultimate success and awareness of the campaign.
Hmm. And in terms of like changes in the industry, since you started, like what has been, do you think, the biggest change in the agency world and how have you adapted?
Gosh, it's been a lot of things. I think that, we are taking into account a lot more. We also have a national PR team. So, across the board, we're taking into a lot more what is happening offline and how our clients are putting together, strategies that might be, well, there's less of this now because of COVID,
Hmm.
but saying on the ground activation or things that might be happening in broadcast. They can kind of be extensions of or rooted in some respects the digital and social media campaigns. So it's sort of I would say it's a broadening of it, and a lot of what happens offline is connected to what's happening in the digital space now.
No, of course. Is there any specific example like to bring that to?
I mean, we've done numerous examples. We've done like trailer premieres where it was an actual event on the ground, but it was it was promoted and live streamed on, say, the social media channels of the film title.
Right.
So it's really kind of activating, you know, press talent and everything on the ground, but then it is bringing in communities of users and fans of the film. So they're actually experiencing it at the same time and discussing it.
That's awesome. So you brought up very briefly for a second there, things are different this year and obviously entertainment a lot. Now we're starting to see more production, but things were at a standstill. How creatively, anything creative you've done to support your clients through 2020?
Yeah, I think that we've found a lot of opportunities in the digital space. I think certainly the virtual, chat arena has exploded this year because of COVID. And that's given a lot of opportunities to, utilize talent in different ways. Most
Hmm.
media outlets are doing interviews via virtual mediums now.
Hmm.
We haven't done this yet, but I think some have even actually done premieres. So it's easier in a lot of ways because this is happening now without having to travel and without having to deal with difficult or complicated or busy schedules. So the availability has been good. In terms of the just the market itself, the challenges have been more just that there is, to your point, there is less films and shows going into production. And I think, I mean, pending how long this goes on, that we might be feeling that well into 2021. But the upside of it is there's been a lot more that have turned to streaming and in-home releases in some way, shape, or form. So it is a really interesting time.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know, like, how, in terms of the streaming and the virtual, are there any tools that you think are great? Like, obviously, everyone uses Zoom, but there's other platforms that, can take a premiere beyond what Zoom can do. Have you leveraged or utilized any of those platforms or digital technologies?
It's primarily been Zoom and Google, but I do think, to your point, I think that there's going to be more. And I also think that I think we are all sort of adjusting to certain things that we have had to do and experience over the last 8 months. So I think some things are just going to stick post COVID.
Oh,
I do
yeah.
think people are going to rely a lot more on virtual hangouts than they ever did before. I think that there's a comfort and an ease to it, and I think that the behavior will change a little bit. So it kind of remains to be seen, but I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, back in the day, going to a red carpet event and there's press and there's influencers, that red carpet event can now be virtual. So some people could go and people who can't get there could do it virtually,
Exactly.
which I
Yeah.
don't, it was probably never opened up. I mean, maybe one on a one-off basis, but now anyone could do that.
Yes. Yeah.
So in terms of, influencer marketing content, given that, you do some of this, it's often a question that we get, like, how else, like the influencers created this content, am I allowed to use it for ads? Am I allowed to put it on my website? Do you leverage any of the influencer content that that you have generated for other marketing channels?
Not as much. We haven't. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I mean, our our extent with influencers is typically inviting them somewhere or giving them access to something to actually promote the show or the property or the film. And that is done, through, it can be done through virtual channels. It could be, sending them promotional packs, those sorts of things. So we just really look for them to promote it on their channels. We haven't gone and actually utilized that content to lead into the campaign, other than we do take, with permission, obviously, user quotes and responses to screenings that fans may have gone to for a particular movie. And that has been certainly used in social content.
No, of course. And then, in terms of you're doing a lot of this organically. So how is that different? Like, how do you measure the success of an organic influencer marketing campaign? Because you come at it from a different point of view than we do. And I'd love to hear about that.
You really just have to look at their reach. And it's very hard to kind of connect the dots to when, someone is exposed to the content or the promotion and how it goes, how it travels from there to actually making a purchase decision to stream the movie or to watch the show or to buy a movie ticket. So really we look at the reach, and that's, I think, most important. And we also look at what their area of interest is and who their followers are. Is it gaming influencer? Is it a home decor influencer? Things like that are obviously very important. And how does that tie into the property?
Okay, so I'm very curious, if you're promoting films, what type of film would you need a home decor influencer for? Just curious.
Oh gosh. I was just kind of doing that off the top of my head.
You don't have to answer. Maybe you don't, but I'd love to hear, you're obviously working in this exciting, amazing space. Like, tell us about some of the activations and the creativity that you leverage the influencers for.
Well, I think something like that would be maybe a movie that had more of an aspirational feel to it, like an aspirational lifestyle feel to it. And there are movies that are like that. I know that example specifically is very targeted, but the other example that I used before, gaming, that was specific to a campaign that we did for 1917.
Wow.
So that it's those types of things. We look for those types of fits.
That's amazing. So the last question I always ask to everyone is, name an influencer you love to follow but hate to admit that you do.
Oh gosh. I don't know if it's anyone that I would hate to admit. I follow a lot. On Instagram, I follow a lot of those like National Geographic type photographers, like all those huge aerial, like,
oh, me too,
shots of, icebergs and mountains and all that stuff. I do really like, I don't know if this falls under influencer per se, but that Josh Gad Reunited Apart on YouTube, where he brings the casts of old movies together.
Like, I've never seen that. I should look at that.
Back to the Future and Ferris Bueller and stuff. Yeah, it's really fun. I like those.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty varied. I follow a lot on social media.
I'm going to ask you one or two more questions because I'm just curious. Given everything, what do you think some of the trends are going to be for next year, 2021?
I do think that's a good question. And it's very hard to tell just given the year that we've had.
Well, because we don't know. Is this good? Q1, does it start? No one. So yeah, but
there's so many considerations too. There's lifestyle, there's the pandemic, there's economic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very hard thing to say. I do think that, as I mentioned before, I do think the virtual chat area is certainly an avenue that I think can be explored a lot more, and probably will be.
Meaning like private Zooms and stuff like that?
Yeah, and are we, how can properties be marketed within that space beyond utilizing them as a tool, as a functionality for, interviews and stuff like that?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you want to share in terms of Brigade Marketing with our listeners?
No, I think you covered it. We love what we do, and it's a great team, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Yes, your team is great, and it's so nice to connect with everyone. So please stay in touch and hopefully brighter days to come in 2021, Tom.
Yes.
Thank you so
Fingers
much for
crossed.
joining.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's Beyond the Box, produced by Tough Monkey Entertainment. Beyond the Box is brought to you by BabbleBox with your host, Sherry Langbert. Visit podcast.babblebox.com for more episodes and influencer marketing secrets.